Good morning. Welcome to the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living, our live love stream today. You are all welcome. I'm so glad to be with all of you. My name is Harriet Hawkins. I'm the minister of the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living, and I'm delighted to be able to connect with all of you this beautiful morning. As you know, so many of our public institutions are choosing to stay at home, to be safe, to protect people from spreading the virus, the coronavirus, but we still want to make sure we are connected in spirit and in consciousness and uplifting our awareness of who we really are. And so that's what we are doing here this morning, and every one of you is just absolutely welcome to join us in this consciousness, even as we are aware that there are thousands of people online this morning knowing that same truth with us, and that power of this collective consciousness is changing the world even now. So let's open with a beautiful and quick prayer to remind us why we are here. So we turn within to turn our attention away from the world of appearances and connect with that inner light within each and every one of us. This light that doesn't come and doesn't go, that is fully alive and awake in, through, and as all creation and beyond all creation. It is this light, it is this love, it is this wholeness and this perfection that is our very life right here and right now. And it is from this wholeness, it is from this light that this beautiful morning is being created all over the planet, with all the beautiful people speaking their words of truth into the world of law, into the world of energy, into the world of form, creating and knowing this new life is happening even now. We give thanks for this time together as the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living community, for all those who are joining us this morning, and that each and every one of us is uplifted, inspired, and impacted by the consciousness that this collective consciousness is bringing. In deep abiding gratitude for the power of the presence of pure spirit as our very life, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, infinite and eternal one. In deep abiding joy and everlasting peace, we release this word now, knowing it is done, and so it is. And so now we'd like to just have a little music. We're going to now do a talk with a short prayer, and then we'll close out. So singing for us today is Jack Quigley, his own song.
Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. And I am yours totally. When I trust in your love, then I know I am free. God, let go of my life. Put faith in you, everything's gonna be alright. Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. And I am open to your plan as I go day to day, yeah, walking hand in hand. I give up worrying what might happen next. I surrender myself for the highest best. Yeah, sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. Surrender, there's more harmony and truth. Surrender, there's more fulfillment and grace. Surrender, there's more enlightenment and joy. Surrender, there's more beauty and power. Surrender, there's more beauty and love. Surrender, there's more clarity and peace. Surrender, there's more tenderness and light. Surrender, there's more freedom. Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember. surrender as I love, serve, and remember. Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Thank you. That's an original song by Jack Quigley. I realize I spoke really fast because I'm really nervous. I've never done this before, so please bear with me. Jack wrote that song the very first service we did together, or the second service we did together, and I love surrender. My whole life has been about living a life of surrender, surrendering to the infinite spirit. And that's what we have to recognize in this time. Surrender is an incredibly powerful force in our life. And we have to be clear to what it is that we are surrendering. And the surrendering doesn't mean that we give up our power of choice. It doesn't mean we give up our power of thought. It doesn't mean we stop participating. It is not a passive way of being in the world. Surrendering is a very active, participatory energy in the world. As you all know, we have this coronavirus, and we want to differentiate between the facts of the coronavirus and what we know is the truth. The facts are, as it's a virus that's spreading very quickly. We've seen in Italy that it's overwhelming their healthcare system. They're at 20% capacity. Healthcare workers themselves are getting sick. It's beyond what they can handle right now. And the concern is that that's going to happen in the United States if we don't take measures, such as we are, to stop the spread of the coronavirus. And apparently, it's very easy to spread. People who have the virus itself often don't show symptoms, but they affect other people who are immunocompromised, elders, that there are people who are unsafe from it, and we don't even know that we're carrying it. So as one doctor said, one way to think about it is rather than trying to protect ourselves from getting it, we want to protect other people from possibly getting it from us because we may not even know if we have it yet or not. So there's a lot of unknowns around this virus, and we're taking all these precautions, which I think is essential, and what we do as good citizens of the country and of the globe. So that's what we're doing. Those are the facts of the coronavirus. Now, what we are also about in the New Thought teaching and spiritual, anyone who's on the spiritual path, is recognizing what the spiritual truth is. The spiritual truth is that we are made in the image of likeness, of pure spirit. This spirit is whole, perfect, and complete. It's a divine idea that is always in existence, that has no lack or limitation. There's no way we can add on to it. It is already whole. There's no way we can take away from it. It doesn't come and it doesn't go. This divine idea is absolute. It is unchanging. It is infinitely good where there is no opposite. It is infinitely whole where there is no opposite. It is infinitely loving where there is no opposite. It simply is all that is good, all that is love, all that is perfect health. That is the image and likeness of which we are all born and made in the image of all creation is created from this idea, this causal, first cause idea. And so in the New Thought tradition that really came into America in the 1800s and came because the Western medicine wasn't really doing a great job yet, as it does today, in curing a lot of people. So people were looking for other ways to heal their bodies, cure their bodies. And so they were holding to this idea. They were looking into the Bible, looking how Jesus cured people. Jesus said, all these things you shall do and more. So they were following his example of knowing the truth, of knowing we're made in the image and likeness, and calling it out through our words, through our language, speaking out the truth, that there is only the divine presence, and it is the all power of the universe. And it is from that place people were having incredible cures. And there's an entire history in the New Thought tradition of people, by doing this mental work, this mental knowing of what is real, that they would start to have cures in their body. So an example of this is I worked in psychiatric hospitals for 4 years, 2 years in a private hospital in DC and 2 years in LA at the UCLA Neuropsychiatric Hospital. When I was working at the Neuropsychiatric Hospital, I was also in practitioner training, and we were reading a book called Principles of Healing by H.B. Jeffrey. And there he's speaking these New Thought principles. Turn away from the conditions. Turn away from appearance. We actually see this in all the world's religions. Turn away from appearances. Look to the divine energy, to the divine spirit, which you cannot see, taste, touch, hear, or smell. It is on another realm. Turn our attention inward, and from that place, hold that. Hold that idea of divine perfection. And as we hold it, that starts to gather energy around it, and we create a new form. This is how we move from victim mentality into empowerment. So I was at the psychiatric hospital, and something happened that the people who had been there much longer than I had said had never happened before. 2 young girls came on the unit, and neither one of them could keep food in their stomach. They had gotten so emaciated, and it wasn't that they were purposely vomiting it up. Their physical body could not hold food, and so they had no food, so they had to put tubing in them that went past their stomach to start feeding them. Both of these girls were around 12 or 13, and they were on different sides of the unit, and I was assigned to one of them. So I'm with this young girl. She can't get out of bed. She has no energy. She has no strength left in her. And she would normally be in a regular hospital, but the reason why she was in the psychiatric hospital is they felt that perhaps there was some psychological issues that were also triggering this physiological symptom. She was in pain a lot because she had no weight on her. Everything hurt. Movement in the bed just hurt. She slept a lot, but when she was awake, she was in pain. But because she slept a lot, and this is the only time this ever happened, I was assigned to be with one person for 3 weeks for my entire shift. So I would sit with her for the entire shift. I'm reading H.B. Jeffrey, hold to the divine truth, hold over and over to the divine perfection that she is, that all life is, and turn away from appearances. Well, I couldn't turn away from appearances. She was in pain. She was crying. I wasn't going to ignore that and pretend that wasn't happening. We deal with things at the level of effect. She was being taken care of at the hospital, physically, emotionally. She was getting therapy. I was talking to her about her life so there was conversation happening on the human level. We are addressing everything on the human level. But because she was sleeping so much, I got to spend a lot of time holding the divine idea for her life, the divine perfection that always was there. It didn't just come. I wasn't asking for it to be new. It already existed. Our job is to see it. So I just held it and held it and held it. And within 3 weeks, she started to be able to hold food. They took the tube out. She started gaining strength. Suddenly she could walk. And my memory of her in my head is still of her dancing down the hallway 3 weeks after she arrived. The young girl who was on the other side of the unit, who I didn't spend any time with, had the same physical healing, physical help, as well as the therapy. However, she steadily got worse and worse and went off to ICU because her body wasn't holding any liquids. And I'm not sure what happened to her. So I can say, well, did prayer work? I was doing these experiments. Was it the fact that I was doing all this holding the truth? I love that when I first was taking classes, the teacher said, we can't take credit for the prayers, which is really, really important and humbling. My mind cannot heal anybody. If I say that I'm healing anyone, I'm completely out of alignment. The healing already exists. The divine presence, the divine wholeness already exists in somebody. All that we're doing is acknowledging that which already exists. As Joel Goldsmith says, the wholeness and the presence of God is always there, but where it goes unrecognized, it's as if it's not there. So our job is to recognize it. The topic today is Prove Me Now. And this comes from a chapter in Malachi, and a lot of spiritual organizations use this as, he's talking about tithing, giving your sources, and then prove me that you'll have lots of fruit and good things will happen because of that. The way I look at it is the more we give ourselves to the divine, our attention, our awareness, we start to prove to ourselves that it starts to show up in the world. So the more we give ourselves to this divine attention, the more we put our attention away from the appearances. We don't deny appearances. We still do a service where we can't spread disease because we acknowledge that there are things that need to be addressed in the physical human realm. And if we need to emotionally connect. We're going to find things as a community as a way to connect emotionally, because even as we take care of ourselves physically, we need to take care of ourselves emotionally. But always the greatest power, the only ultimate power, first cause, is where our attention needs to be in over and over and over. And that takes time and that takes attention. It takes work. So when we say surrender to the divine presence, we're not saying just give in. If we just give in, the power around us, the cultural idea of this, the horror of this virus and the crisis, it's just going to overwhelm us. And then we think of everything else that people are talking about, climate change and politics. What's happening in our world is overwhelming. We do not want to surrender to that. We do not want to just say, I surrender and I trust. We want to be actively engaged. What am I surrendering to? And have I spent a lot of time really thinking about what it is that I'm surrendering to? I think of someone like Joel Goldsmith, who was known for healing and curing many people. He would just sit in silence. He was very big on surrender. Just sit in silence, to be in the presence of spirit. And they would say he would see up to 35 people in a day. They would come and they would sit with him. And just by aligning themselves with this divine idea of perfection, this divine idea that was always there, that everything is already okay, by aligning themselves, the cures were happening. The people would shift in very short periods of time. They wouldn't tell them his whole story. They wouldn't go into the story of it. They would just stand in what they knew. But he didn't just arrive there. He spent 16 years practicing these ideas of principles, that God is whole, that God is good, that there's an infinite abundance of God. He did the mental work. And I think sometimes when we talk about surrender, we forget that it takes mental work as well. Because we are surrounded by a world of duality that's telling us two different stories. And duality will always exist at this level. And we always want to be aware of it, compassionate about it, addressing it. And at the same time, it takes actual mental effort. And that's why we're in classes and communities, to remind ourselves over and over and over of the spiritual truth that cannot be seen, that we cannot say this is what it looks like because we can't see it. So we open our heart and our mind and our soul to that divine presence that we cannot see, but we trust and know that it is more powerful than anything than in the physical realm. Prove me now. We do the work. We give ourselves to this divine presence. It does make a difference in our life. Then the question becomes, and this became very, very important to me, having worked, as I went through practitioner training and spending all my time in learning these new thought principles and working in a hospital, testing them out, living them out. How effective are they? And I wasn't talking for myself as much for other people, because I was around a lot of people who were in pain and who were in suffering, and I wanted to know, do these work? And what I discovered personally, and we're all finding it, prove me now is us about proving it to ourselves, is that there was a whole range. In my time, in the 4 years of the hospital, I experienced extraordinary dramatic healing. In the moment, energy flying around, immediate healing, done. It was extraordinary. I experienced praying and people changing and getting for the better, like the young girl I was talking about. It wasn't dramatic, there wasn't any energy flying around, but it seemed to be a very direct connection from constantly knowing the truth and her getting better. It was almost like Spirit set up that experiment with, the other girl, I don't know, I won't say it, but I just do think the prayer worked. There are people who I felt a soul healing with, that I didn't necessarily, they had a lot of years ahead of them to do work, but the soul healing, the connection that we shared, telling their story, sharing their heart, being vulnerable, there was a healing that couldn't be seen on the physical level, but was no question that it was there, that it was happening. And then there was a lot of people where I couldn't tell one way or the other, and I would say the majority of people, when I was working at the hospital, I was holding this idea of wholeness and oneness for everyone with whom I come in contact. And I didn't necessarily see results for most of the people. It's easy for us to think about the people who don't fit into our scenario of health and healing. Does that mean the divine presence wasn't working in them? And so I had to really be with that. And why sometimes when I prayed I could see the results, sometimes I thought I saw the results, and sometimes I definitely didn't see the results. Why? We talk about this as if it's an exact science, and it's not. Or at least I can only say from my experience, it's not. And it can be kind of cruel, because then what we start saying is, oh, I'm doing all this spiritual work and it only works for some people. Or it only works if the people are willing, or it's in their subconscious mind, or if they believe right, but if they don't believe right, it's not working. And what I've come to know, beyond a shadow of a doubt in my own life and all the people that I work with, it is always working. Where we get blocked is our judgment of it. We are supposed to turn our attention away from appearances. But what I started to discover is that we started still judging by appearances, but we started judging those appearances as bad and good. So if somebody got cured, that meant spirits on the field. And if somebody didn't get cured in the way that we think they should get cured, that they still are having trouble in their health or whatever issues that they are having, that therefore they are not healed. And I got to experience I have had many opportunities to experience over and over of people who are absolutely healed, have a healing consciousness, have a healing light about them. I'm transformed being in their presence, and still had physical challenges, or still had challenges with money, or still had challenges with relationships. That we are 7 billion people, and all of our stories are unique. All of them are soul stories that need to be expressed, and they have the whole degree of how that shows up. So the greatest damage we can do to people is start to judge them as being more in alignment with principle because they're cured and healthy, or less in alignment with principle because they're sick. I have so many examples because I've been working on this for so long, but I'll just use one more. When I was working also in practitioner training, I read the book of Grace and Grit, which was a book by Ken Wilber and Treya Wilber. Treya Wilber's journals are entered into the book. She was diagnosed with breast cancer 10 days after they got married, and the book is about their 5-year journey with her breast cancer. At the same time, I knew somebody in another community who was not someone he was somewhat abrasive, aggressive. I didn't particularly like being around him, and he had a very serious medical challenge. And he asked a lot of people to pray, to know this wholeness, to hold that idea for him, and that his body was fine. It was so interesting because that was happening while I was reading this book about Treya Wilber. And the results were very different. This man's physical challenge was cured, gone. It was almost like it never existed. But I still found him somewhat abrasive, and I didn't feel like he was healed. Heal is knowing your wholeness and oneness with pure spirit. I didn't experience that around him at all. I just know that his physical body was cured. With Treya, she ends up leaving her body. She dies with breast cancer 5 years into it. The whole time she's traveling, doing Western medicine, holistic medicine, everything. She's doing everything. They were already spiritual when they met the Wilbers, and they continued to do all this amazing spiritual work. Her soul touched me so profoundly. I cried and I cried when she died because I felt her wholeness. I felt her energy, and changed my life dramatically. The day I closed that book, I made changes that changed me forever. And she has come and visit me since then, only once, giving me very clear guidance that the sense of wholeness of the divine being, she knew who she was. She was powerful. And yet if we judge by appearances, because she didn't cure breast cancer but moved on to the next dimension, and this gentleman was cured, we would say, well, he's more aligned with spirit. That's judging by appearances. He has his whole story. I'm not here to judge his story. I'm just saying what I was getting, what I was continually in this process of learning, is that what does healing look like? Healing looks different for everybody. Nobody can judge it for anybody else. And as we are going through as a collective country and globe around the coronavirus, we have to be very vigilant about knowing the truth, doing the mental work, prove me now, stay in that presence of first cause, wholeness and perfection and love, and be unrelenting about it. Still working and operating in the relative world, but with our mind being unrelenting about what we knew. Surrendering to that energy, that once we know it and we know it and we know it, we surrender, and we surrender to it and nothing else. We do our work, and to be vigilant about where we might be judging out in the world based on appearances, by what we're seeing or hearing, people who we think are better than other people because of the way they're showing up in their physical health. None of that is real. None of that is real. We all are different. We all have our own stories. We don't know what everybody's story is, and all of our stories are supposed to be what they are, I believe, and are unique and wonderful. So we do our due diligence. One doctor in BBC said, we often are carrying around the symptoms of coronavirus and we don't know it. So it would be better if he said, just imagine that you do have it and you want to protect yourself from letting other people get it. So rather than I'm trying to protect myself from getting it, I'm trying to protect other people. This is an opportunity to be incredibly kind and generous and loving towards all types of the population. And at the same time, we are each individually, passionately, and collectively, what's happening online right now, all these services, of knowing the absolute truth that is unwavering, that stays always with what is real. So I'm going to end with a story of where I, having lived this and working on what that consciousness and what it means to be in that surrendered state. There was a woman who came into the hospital and she was suicidal. She had been in the hospital 3 other times. She was done. She had done all the therapy. She had done all the medication. She was just done. She said, there's nothing left. I've done it all. I don't want to live. I'm finished. And so she just lay in bed and wouldn't get up. And they asked me to go sit with her. And as I was sitting with her and she was telling me, she's like, I'm not getting up. There's no point trying because it's not going to lead anywhere. There's nothing good that comes from it. And I sat with her, and because I've been surrendering and giving my life to this divine idea, to this first cause for so long, I was telling her about my own experience of feeling hopeless at a time. And in that hopelessness, the only thing left was the divine presence. The only thing present was spirit. Spirit was the only thing that could help at this point. That all the physical, emotional, and mental tools had been exhausted. And so I knew that I could only turn to spirit as my healing energy. And as I'm sharing this with her, the words are coming out, but I'm almost unaware of the words because the entire room is suddenly this light and there's energy flying around. There's not a single solid object in that room. Her bed, herself, my chair, me, all around us is just swirling golden energy. And I can't even remember what I'm saying because the words feel so far away. What's powerful in that moment is this energy. And then suddenly, I'm in another state, but it feels completely normal. When we go into these other states, it's who we really are. So it doesn't feel like, oh, this is odd. It feels completely natural. And so in this vast energy that's flying around, I knew when it was done. I got up and I walked out of the room. And 10 minutes later, she came out, curtains were drawn, she had makeup on her face. She goes, okay, I'm ready, let's go. And she had a big smile on her face. An instant, immediate healing. Instant, and that's the power of spirit. It has the power to heal all of us instantly. In that way, it was an obvious way. The makeup, the smiling, it's done. And I knew it was done. I didn't think it was odd or peculiar because I was in that energy right with her. How it's going to show up for each of us is going to be different. But when we live these principles day in and day out, and when we stay true to them and we do the work around them, we prove to ourselves over and over that they are real and we can trust it and we can surrender our entire life to it because these principles only reveal goodness. And not goodness in the way that we judge it on the human realm, but that pure goodness that our soul knows. The moment we connect with it, our soul knows. We prove it to ourselves. God is good all the time, regardless of condition, appearances, form. God, the divine presence, love, intelligence, Brahma, whatever form you want to use, word you want to use, that thing beyond concept and form, it is always good where there is no opposite. That is what we are standing in as a community here at the Lighthouse Center for Spiritual Living. That's what we are standing in as the CSL community. That's what we're standing in as the spiritual. Anyone who knows the power and the presence of God is the source of your life. That's where we stand. And it is from this place that as we stand there, we are not victims. We are empowered. That's changing the world around us. That we're on the one hand, we hear the stories of fear and terror, and as we all collectively stand in the truth, that cannot help but impact the world around us. So thank you for joining us here at the Lighthouse community to stand, to do the work, the mental work, to prove it to ourselves and to stand in it day in and day out, no matter what, non-negotiable. We stand in the truth. There's only one power, and it is infinitely good. It is infinitely whole, perfect, and complete, and it is my life now. Let us pray. And how grateful I am to be in this consciousness with my beloved friends, sisters, and brothers who are with us online in consciousness, knowing that there is no separation in time and space, that even as we are in our own individual homes and places where we are watching this, that in fact the truth of our being is connected and together and one. No separation in time or space We are one here and now. We are one in knowing the truth that there is only this one power, not two powers, one power, and it is infinite. There is no place where it stops and something else begins. We are in the one power. It is everywhere. It is in, through, and as all creation, every atom and cell, organ, action, and function of our bodies, of all bodies on this planet, of the earth's body, in every way. This divine presence is fully alive and awake and aware of itself. And today we are consciously choosing to be in recognition of that as the power of our life. We choose moment by moment to see and know the divine presence as our very life, as the life of our neighbors, of our friends, and of our family, of the world, of everything that is unfolding. We choose first and foremost to believe the story of Spirit, that Spirit is the story of our life. We do not deny what's happening in the relative world, but we choose to put our attention on the divine one, unwavering, the single-eyed attention. Keep our eye single so our whole body is full of light. This is where we live, move, and have our being. And it is in this place that we know for ourselves, first and foremost, that we are healed. As Ernest Holmes says, there's nothing to be healed, only God to be revealed. We are revealing the divine presence as every aspect of our being, physically, emotionally, mentally, that we let go of the judgments of what that's supposed to look like, because we know that just as we are right now in this moment is perfect. It is just as it's supposed to be. We celebrate it. We dance in the streets with it. We say, thank you, God, for this life that we are as you. We know it, we feel it, and we accept it. We celebrate who we are and accept who we are. And as we do this for ourselves, it is so much easier to see it in every person with whom we come in contact. Their divine perfection, just as they are right now. We turn our attention away not only from appearances, but from our judgment of appearances, from our conditioned mind that likes to compare, and we see only the divine. And so this prayer is reminding us over and over, we see the divine presence now, always, and forever. This is alive and awake as our community, as all the communities, as this planet. And as this word has been consciously spoken into the law of life, as this word has said yes to itself and claimed itself and accepted itself, and we are in collective agreement, it is done. And we stand in the power knowing that it is already done before it was ever spoken. By speaking it, we see it, we feel it, we know it on all levels and dimensions of our being. In this awareness, in this truth, we let it be. And we all say together, collectively, and so it is. Amen and amen.